Welcome to A Woman's Clarity, a podcast that empowers financial professionals to better connect with and serve their female clients. Listen in as host Kirsten Schlumbohm, Vice President of Annuity Sales at C2P, and her guests help you speak the language of women clients and meet their unique financial needs and goals.
Hello and welcome to A Woman's Clarity, a podcast with C2P. I'm Kirsten Schlumbohm, the host. I guess I'm always excited to have guests on our podcast because I get the opportunity to get one-on-one with a lot of top advisors and industry leaders. But I'm excited to have Lisa Chenet, a financial advisor with CLP Tax and Wealth. One of the reasons I just absolutely adore Lisa is her son does live out here in Oregon, so we've got the Oregon connection. But her background is so unique, powerful, and I just love the fact that she is in this industry because of her background and what she has brought to the table and what she does for her clients. So without further ado, Lisa Chenet, so thankful that you're here. But will you please share with our listening audience who you are and your background in the finance industry?
Hi, Kirsten. Thank you so much for having me. So my background in the history is like a lot of women's background in the history where I fell into it by accident. My background is really in computer programming. That was what I got in college, and did the marriage thing and the kids, and fell into financial advising because after my divorce, I needed a financial advisor, and I found a wonderful one who is with C2P, and we learned all about the bucket plan and all that we'll talk about later. But I realized that I've always been a financial advisor at heart. I was always helping other women get more information. I remember my sister and I were talking the other day how I believe it was in the 70s, they passed a law finally that women can get their own credit card. And I remember my sister and I telling my mom, you need to get one, you need to get one. And my mom's like, well, your dad's not going to divorce me. That's not the point. You need to get one for you to have it in your own name. So I was always empowering, even in my teens, saying you need your own money. I've always told my kids, you need to have your own key to your own apartment before you get married, you get settled down, if you're going to get married and settle down. I just love finances. I love empowering women because I find that we really don't talk about finances. And I'm an immigrant. Well, I'm a child of immigrants. Both my parents are from Haiti. We grew up in the Virgin Islands. And I'm lucky because my father was a financial advisor. He used to work for the IRS when we lived in New York. And when we lived in the Virgin Islands, he helped write the tax code for the Virgin Islands. I didn't even know it until later on. I'm still going through his stuff. He passed away about 8 years ago. And so I got this lifelong learning from him. I'm always wanting to know. I love it when my clients ask me a question I don't know about, because that means that I get to go and find out about it and come back and teach them about it and let other people know. So
I love that, Lisa. I love that about you, because when you and I have conversations, it's always impactful because we're learning from each other. And I have no doubt that your clients are learning from you. But I want to give a shout out to Mr. Parsons for seeing the talent in you. I love Mr. Parsons and his wife because they're just wonderful people, and I love their philosophy on helping their clients. So I'm so grateful that they saw what you could do and they brought you on board. And it was 50 years ago this year that women were allowed to get credit cards based on a law that's passed 50 years ago. That really leads us to the topic of today's conversation, is why women need a financial coach. So what has been your biggest experience that has led you to this stance besides your father? I know there's been more to your story than learning from your dad and learning the things that he's done, but what brought you to this realization that women need a financial coach?
Because Mr. Parson we mainly deal with retirees, men typically die first, statistically. I was upset seeing the women coming in here and not knowing what the finances are. They're grieving, and at the same time, they're worried because they don't know if they can pay the mortgage, if they still have a mortgage, or they can eat or whatnot. Luckily, if there are clients, yes, that's not a problem, because that's the one thing Mr. Parson always made sure we take care of both couples. And we always make sure that whenever the first couple passes away, first spouse passes away, we make sure the second one is okay. So I just didn't like that clients would come in and they would bring their widows over, and they always say the same thing. Oh, I wish I had met you 5 years ago or 8 years ago. I don't know where I got this, but I stole this from someone. Don't be a passenger princess with your finances. A lot of us women are, and the passenger princess, for those of you who don't know, is usually it's with a car, where if it's your car, your significant other is the one who drives your car. You don't pump your gas, you don't have directions. You're just the princess in the passenger. That's fine if you're going somewhere, and you're in a car. But with your finances, you should never be a passenger princess with your finances. I always tell my female clients, ask two things. You ask and you verify, because you need to know, because you don't know what you don't know.
I love that. I love don't be a passenger princess, because truthfully, Jeff usually drives my car and I'm fine sitting in the passenger seat. But when it comes to our finances, I take the steering wheel. Given that I'm in the industry and he's also, technology driven, it's a great relationship. He can drive my princess around and I'll make sure that we're okay financially. But I do agree that we need to not be passive when it comes to our financial health. But you're not just focusing on financial health when you're working with your clients, but on emotional and physical well-being. How does your holistic approach target these three areas?
I've noticed that the clients that are coming in, the men and women think differently about retirement. Men typically, and not all men, but men typically look at a number. I need to have $1 million. I need to have 2 million, whatever that number is. Women, and I'm in that category of thinking that way, is it's not so much the amount, but can I sustain my lifestyle throughout retirement? Am I going to have to be at 75 years old saying, welcome to Walmart because I need a job? So I make sure that I address both when I talk to my clients, because emotionally, physically, it causes stress if you don't know, if you're not sure. And when you talk about that you take care of the finances for Jeff, it works both ways. Jeff needs to know what's going on so that it's not just always about death. What happens if you're in a hospital for a month? The bills still need to be paid. If your significant other doesn't know that, oh, okay, I pay this account, this bill out of this account, and I pay that bill out of this account, they need to know that, because what's in here needs to be on paper so that everyone's on the same page. Because in relationship, there's one person who's better suited to do finances than others. And I'm not saying that if you don't like numbers to go ahead and take it over, but you need to be aware, because once you're aware emotionally, physically, you're going to be a lot calmer, because you're like, you know what? My retirement's okay. I can see the path we're on. I can see where it's going to end up. I can see how my retirement's going to look like.
I love that. And now I do want to be clear that Jeff is not a passenger prince when it comes to our finances. We do talk about it. I just take chair one as we use C2P speak, but it's just how we communicate. But I think it's really important to piggyback on what you're saying, is that you want to educate both partners in the relationship when they come in, because I'm sure you've been in a situation where you're looking at a partner and one's a dominant, one's a more submissive in their speaking ability. That doesn't mean the person who's silent, and it's typically the female, isn't a decision maker. So how are you doing if you've got that situation? I know this isn't a part of the questions we talked about, but how do you get and engage that person who's being quiet?
Well, C2P did that for us using the bucket plan system. There is this whole questionnaire that we go through, and we get to know the clients. We ask each client, what do you love about your significant other? And we ask each of that so that they speak up. What I always do is when I ask a question, I make sure to look at both of them. I can't tell you how many times a female client of mine has said, yeah, we had another advisor, and even though I was a decision maker, they always talked to my husband, and it's frustrating, and so you want to make sure that they're both engaged. Using the bucket plan system, it works. Everything, C2P makes it easy for us. It's plug and play. And the wonderful thing about using the bucket plan system is, you're going to do the same thing every time for every person. I don't care if they're 20 years old or they're 100 years old. You use the same process. And it makes my life easier because the questions are there And you just have to ask the questions and fill in the blanks.
It's simplified sophistication when it comes to financial planning. And
Exactly.
it takes the guesswork so that you know that when you're having these conversations, you've got the right process, but it flows so well. And a lot of times women will leave their financial advisor after their husband passes away because they don't feel educated, they haven't been engaged, and they want to be seen and heard and they want to understand. So you're helping them feel comfortable and confident. So if their husband were to pass away first, they know that you're their financial coach to be there as a team or as an individual. And that's so powerful. And that leads me to my next question. I was thinking, I was considering the challenges that we women face, such as earning less while living longer. How do you tailor your coaching to address these specific disparities? So I know you're constantly talking about this with some of your clients, or going out and talking to women's groups about this. How do you address it?
Earning less and living longer. So the first thing I always do is I want to make sure they're aware of what they have. And I show them how to read their pay stub. You'd be surprised as how many people don't know how to read their pay stub, their fidelity statement, their Schwab, their 401k. They know how much is in there, but they don't know how it's allocated. So one of the things, I'm not sure where I read this study, but we women tend to be more conservative. I've noticed that in their 401ks, TSPs, whatnot, they're usually a lot more conservative than they need to be. With C2P, we have a volatility tolerance analysis, and I explain what that is. I spend time explaining each of the steps as to why it's important that whatever money you make, you want to make sure it lasts a long time.
And I think one thing that you and Leonard also do well, if I may say, is that you give your clients permission to spend their money when they're in retirement.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing? I know this is kind of tearing off, but do you want to share a little bit about your forever paychecks?
Compliance doesn't like the word forever paychecks.
Sorry,
So
compliance.
that's okay. We call them lifetime income checks. So there are certain demographics that it works for, and others it's really not necessary. If you have a billionaire, it may or may not be necessary. But the demographics that we work with, we want to make sure that you have enough money to last you your lifetime.
Okay.
So Social Security is your first lifetime. We like to call the forever check because it's there as long as you're alive. So it's your forever check. If you have a pension, which a lot of clients now, a lot of women, the pensions aren't there anymore. We have two major companies here who stopped their pensions last year, and they just went straight to the 401k and matching. So if they're lucky to have two checks, that's where I start. I go, okay, these two checks, this is how much you'll get, because I asked them for their paperwork, and I say, can you live off of this? They're like, no, that's only $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month. I said, okay, there are ways that you can make another check. And I go through, and again, the bucket plan, the training goes through all that because there are several ways to do it. One of the ways that we do it is we look to see if an annuity is right for them. And I explain what that is and go through. But the women that we set it up for, actually, we just set one up this morning, and the guy has a TSP, and he got married later in life, but he already had two children. So his two children are on his TSP, not the wife. So what we did is we took a piece of that, put it in an annuity, so that when he turns on income, the annuity income, because it's got the lifetime income rider on it, she will get that income for the rest of her life. And so we explained the differences between, we call it pinching off your 401k. Eventually it'll end if you pinch off enough, or securing that money, guaranteeing it for later on in life. I explain it just like with Social Security and your pension. You can't go to work for 2 years and say, okay, I want my pension. Annuities need time to grow. So if you're 80 years old, it's not going to work for you. But if you're in the early 60s, we want to look at that to see if that's an option for you.
Gosh, it's like you're doing my job for me, Lisa. You're giving them a guaranteed income floor. You're giving them a hybrid. It's part of what we do and what we train on. So I love the fact that you and Mr. Parsons follow the bucket plan, and you do it so well. In our conversations, you have expressed a strong passion for empowering women your education on their finances.
Mhm.
What else do you find yourself specifically focusing on when you're educating women? And is there a pattern or similarity that you see amongst us that you're like, aha,
The not asking. And Mr. Parson will say, trust your husband 100%. But like Reagan says, trust but verify. He always says that and it gets a laugh. And that's what you want to do. You want to trust that everything is the way it's supposed to be, but you also want to verify because my Uncle Paul is a perfect example. He's passed away, so I can share this story. So he was married 3 times. So he was a surgeon. And wife number 3, and they lived in Puerto Rico on the beach, on a condo. He was my godfather, so I would visit them all the time. And my mom would tell wife number 3, wife number 2 is still on everything because wife number 2 was my mom's cousin. So she knew that everything, Uncle Paul hadn't changed stuff. And he kept saying, yeah, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it. So it's not that he didn't want to change it. So she went and she helped him change a few things. And unfortunately, he passed away. And she says, okay, the banks are all in my name. I'm from the United States. I don't want to keep living in Puerto Rico. So I'm going to sell the condo, which she was going to get a lot of money for it. It's a beachfront condo in San Juan. And I'm going to move back with my sister. Come to find out, he never took the name off. He never got around to it. My Uncle Paul was a big procrastinator. And so wife number 2's name was still on it. She was devastated and there was nothing she could do about it. Luckily in Puerto Rico, the widow could not be kicked out of her house. So she could stay there as long as she wanted to, but she just couldn't sell the house. So she ended up just selling everything inside, get whatever money she could. She did have the bank account. So it's like I said, it's not that they don't want to provide for you, but some people need that push. And I blame her because my mom kept telling her, you need to verify. You need to verify. Well, he said he's going to do it. Did he say he did it? No, not yet. It's on us to make sure that everything has a beneficiary. And that's one of the things that I notice my clients, because they love their spouse and they believe the spouse because the spouse has good intentions. But it's not that you're not believing him. You just need to verify. And especially if he was married before and we call you like the second team player,
Right.
and you're on the second team. And we like to say either because you were cut, you were traded, you had to do a walk away, whatever reason you're on the second team, you're there. The first wife's name is on everything. So you want to make sure that your affairs are in order. We always tell the clients, you don't want to mess with whatever he's leaving behind for his children. That's good if a man wants to do that. There's a meme that the little girl says, worry about yourself. What is it that you're going to get if he dies? And I'm finding the pattern that women don't verify that.
They don't put their oxygen mask on first.
There you go. Yes.
They are, because we love our significant others, we're trusting them.
Yes.
Are there specific questions, since we're talking on this topic, that you would encourage women? So women, if you're listening, this is a tip for you. Questions they should be asking, or even if they were to come into your office, it's appropriate to ask the question, who are your beneficiaries? By you or the spouse, if they want to make sure they're getting everything in order. Or do you have questions you would recommend that they ask in front of their advisor, in front of you, or to their significant other?
Well, the good news is, again, you plugging the bucket plan, we ask those questions for you. This is why it's a really good thing that everyone needs a financial coach in their corner, a financial advisor. Because of our licenses, I'm also a certified financial fiduciary. I have to do what's in your best interest. I can ask the hard questions because we're neutral. I'm not on her side. I'm not on his side. I'm on the side of this is what you want to happen. And my job is to make it happen or to show you where your holes are.
I love it. Put me in, coach. I love it. I love how you're taking care of your clients. And I love that you'll take ownership, because there are women out there that are timid to ask those questions. Maybe they came from a different relationship where if they asked questions, the result wasn't pleasant for them. So you're helping them in that next generation relationship, make sure that their plans are in order and their financial future is secure. Now, on your LinkedIn profile, if anybody goes out to look at you on LinkedIn, you've outlined 3 major areas of concerns for women: retirement lifestyle, future health, and planning for loved ones.
Yes.
How do you tackle each one of these 3 areas? They're big areas. And how do you find ways that where these all connect when you're presented with these 3 different things?
So most people think I'm going to work, and I'm going to retire. A lot of, well, everyone I've met, unless if they're going through it, they forget about the part where, hey, I can't do for myself. I either need to be in a facility. I like to say, and I say this to clients, who's going to change your diapers when you need them changed? How does that look? Do you want to be in a facility? Do you have a child who's going to do it? And if they tell me they have a child that's going to do it, I said, have you spoken to your child about that? You can't assume that your child is going to take care of you. Kids are different. I know in my generation, my grandmother lived with us because my mom needed the extra help, and my mom and dad. But also in the older generation, everyone lived around. You had your village. The kids didn't stray too far away. With me, I mean, like you said at the beginning, I've got a kid in Portland. I've got one in Germany. I've got one in California, one in Virginia, and I'm here in Virginia. So my kids are all over the place. So I always tell the clients when I'm doing the bucket plan for them, so I'm planning for them, I always say, okay, we're going to kill one of you off first. So you got to make it light. Talking about death is not going to make you die. I always tell them that. I said, that's what you need to tell your kids, because a lot of kids go, oh, I don't want to hear about this. So it's not going to make me die. It's just going to make your life easier. When my father passed away, he made my life so easy as the executor. He said, Lisa, everything you need is in this. It was a drawer. He had his will, all the estate planning things that he needed was in there. My sister and I could speak for him. And because everything was prepared, all we had to do was follow his wishes. So I tell my clients estate planning is important. Tax planning is important. This is why the bucket plan uses a holistic approach where we don't just look at your assets in your 401k. No, what's your budget like? Right. What does your retirement look like? Are you still going to have a mortgage? Do you still have this? What does your, when you're getting sick looks like? A lot of us women, like you mentioned, we love our spouses. We love our significant other. And what I've seen is if you're not prepared, if you don't have an advisor showing you how to do this, the wife will spend all the money taking care of the husband. And then when he dies, what's left for her? I have a case right now that I'm helping this woman. She's a client of ours, so she's in a much better position than if she hadn't seen us. Is her husband, 6'2", she could no longer handle him. He has dementia, getting him out of bed, she couldn't do it. So she had put him in a facility, and it was only a couple thousand, like $3,000 a month. She could handle that, not a problem, but he wasn't getting the care that she felt he needed. So she found another facility, and he's getting wonderful care there. She's like, Lisa, the change is dramatic. He recognizes me, he's happy. It's costing her $6,000 a month here in Virginia. It costs different everywhere. But to get the best care, and it costs $6,000. Even though he turned on his income, she called me the other day. She's like, you know what? On his portion, because I stress the fact that there's his portion for this and her portion. She goes, on his portion, I want him to keep living, but if he keeps living, we're going to run out of money. So we're working now to figure out what needs to be done, because she really doesn't want to have to pull him out of there. But right. That's going to be the different options. People don't think about that. If she didn't have an advisor, she may have taken money that was earmarked for her, or she has an annuity that she can turn on. She hasn't turned on yet because she's saving that for her.
Right.
And then we talk at the end, who do you want to get your money? Dave Allison has the tax management journey. He says, you can leave your money to your family, your charity, or the government. I can help you leave them to 2. Which one do you want to leave out? Like, if you do nothing, the government tells you, the government already has a will in place for you. Right. So estate planning is also important. You You want to make sure that you have contract laws and beneficiaries so that those go right away, so that your will is only for your house, your things. So I make sure that my clients see it's not just retirement. It's beyond that. It's when my spouse dies, what do I do?
But you're also talking about the important things. She could not take care of her husband. A lot of times women will sacrifice their own health when their spouse, their partner, has a health situation. And then what happens if that person who's the caregiver, what happens if something happens to them and they're not getting the care? She wouldn't have been able to supervise it. So
Right.
it's really good that you're having the conversation with your clients about the protection conversations of their income, protection of their assets, and protection of their own emotional well-being and health, because you're also putting in that protection for if they need the caregiving, whether it's home health care, nursing home, or end-of-life care. So that's such an important part of it, because again, we women will sacrifice ourselves for our loved ones. And once they're gone, if their advisor never engaged them with the planning and had an understanding, like you've given her an understanding and a comfortability to come to you and say, hey, Lisa, this is challenging us. What can we do? You're there. And she's comfortable to be vulnerable with you to say, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do right now. Can you help me? And amen, at least it's there to help her.
Yeah.
I think it just gives me goosebumps that you're out there doing this, and you are a phenomenal financial coach. And we've already talked about the bucket plan, and you tie that into your coaching. Is there anything else that you're tying back to your coaching with your clients? Because I know that you're following the process. I don't know if there's anything we're missing in your process.
No, the process goes all the way through. The process even talks about legacy planning, and legacy planning is not just for your beneficiaries. Legacy planning is for the surviving spouse first. Like you so succinctly said, you need to put the oxygen mask on your face first. So we want to make sure they understand that legacy planning doesn't mean leave behind money, as we call it. It means legacy planning for your surviving spouse, because they're going to need help. And this is why the process works, because if you use the process, you don't forget to ask the questions,
Right.
because you get the whole picture, as opposed to, like I said, the men just say, oh, I want this money to grow. I mean, we've had some clients say, oh, you're doing so well with my sister's money. I've got, 300,000. What can you do? Like, we can't do anything with it. You have to come in. We have a process.
Right.
But we don't grow your money to grow your money. We address a problem that you want us to help you fix. And if the money can do, that's what we do. I tell clients, especially the women clients, everything in finance, in my opinion, is neither good nor bad. Is it right for you at this point in time? And I tell them, I'm lactose intolerant. If I went around saying milk is bad, that would make me a crazy person. So, some clients come in, oh, don't put money in the market because it's going down, or put money in the market, or don't buy annuities, get annuities. It depends on you. And the biggest financial advisors that all of us have, male and female, is our coworkers and social media now. I see so much going through TikTok and YouTube, and I see such wrong information based on the clientele that I have. What works for you may not work for me. And if you go to social media, please be aware of that. Talk to someone. I think it's called the bucketplanbook.com. You can go and find an advisor in your area. So I would recommend going there first, because most of us are fiduciaries. A lot of us are members of the National Association of Certified Financial Fiduciaries, and they also have a website. But you may have to see several advisors before you find one that you feel listens to you. Not all of us advisors are the same. And then remember, some advisors have minimums. So don't get frustrated. The perfect advisor for you is out there. You just need to be proactive and find one.
I love one. You talked about the bucket plan process in the book. It's a phenomenal book. I actually just left the book at my hair salon last night for the ladies there to read, because they were asking me questions. Like, if you want a good resource, it's number 10 on the USA Today's one of the best financial planning books for consumers. So I left it there for them to read. And when I go get my hair done again, I'm sure they're going to ask me questions, because they're constantly asking me questions. So I love that you did talk about the book. And again, when it comes to social media and financial advice, how many times do we see advice out there that is the exception to the rule, not necessarily the rule? So always trust and verify, as you've said, put your oxygen mask on first, adjust your oxygen mask if you need to. And I do love the fact that you're talking about interview your financial advisors that you're going to use. When I go buy a new pair of running shoes, I just don't buy the flashiest pair of running shoes because I have a hard heel strike. I've got to find the right running shoes. And I've tried out a couple, and those that work, I continue to use because they're the best for me. It's just like the same financial advisor. If you talk to somebody and they say everything that feels wrong to you and not like, you're like, it just does not work for you. It's okay to say thank you for your time and go interview the next person. You've got to work with the right financial coach that's going to help you and listen, more importantly, listen to you for your financial goals and where you want to be. Now, granted, we can't always create miracles. There's sometimes there's not enough savings that have been done, so you'll do the best that you can, but you have to find the person that's going to work well with you. And that's why a financial coach is such an important aspect for women. So as we're wrapping up, what words of advice would you give for women who are just beginning to think about financial planning, whether it's they're in their 30s, their 50s, their 70s, and what advice would you give them on planning and finding a coach? Where should they start?
Well, the bucketplanbook.com. You can find advisors in your area. That's one way. Check with your friends. If they're happy with their advisor, you can interview them. You could also go to the National Association of Certified Financial Fiduciaries. There are different ways. I know online, there are some websites that say how to find an advisor. They give you questions to ask. You want to make sure they're a fiduciary. And a fiduciary means they'll always do what's in your best interest. And that's very important. I know in the past several years, Congress was going through and making sure that we're all fiduciaries. It's like being a board certified doctor. You want to make sure that you have a doctor that can perform surgeries in the hospital where you are. You just want to make sure that they have the credentials. And the main thing I would tell women to do is if you're working outside the home and you have access to a 401k, a TSP, 403b, 457, whatever it is, a retirement plan at work to put money in. I don't care if it's $5 a paycheck, $10 a paycheck. I've had clients Mr. Parson had one just the other day, a man who worked for the court system. And he said, well, I never felt I had enough money to put in my retirement. And you forget about it. And now he's 62 thinking about retirement and he has maybe $40,000 in there. And we had to tell him, you need to keep working or win the lottery. I mean, it's just, there's no way around it. And if you're in your 20s and 30s, putting money in your 401k or your retirement plan, it will grow. It will grow. Whether the market goes up and down, don't worry about the ups and downs of the market when you're younger. In your 60s, in 40s, 20s to 40s, you need to be putting money in. 50s, you need to be seeing, okay, do I need to put more money? Do I need to play catch up? In your 60s, you want to make sure you do have an advisor if you hadn't had one from before. But it's all about putting money away. I know we are now in the short attention span generation. And this is why, videos are only 2 minutes long now because people's attention spans are like goldfish. You need to talk to someone, a financial coach, a financial advisor, to make sure that you're not living beyond your means. My parents always taught us to live below our means. You don't need 20 pairs of sneakers, unless you're a runner, I'm sorry, and you use them. But don't buy just to buy. I know that's easy to say, but I'm also, when someone comes to me and says, oh, but I love Starbucks, that's fine. I'm not telling you to give it up. I'm just saying don't get it 7 days in a row. Can you give up 2 of those days and the $10 you're spending on, or $20, can you put that into your 401k? Oh, and especially parents, if you have your children living at home and they have a job, make them pay rent. I don't care if you need the money or not. It's not about the money. It's about teaching them that the money that hits their hand is not all theirs. What we did for our son is we put it in a separate savings account for him. In hindsight, this was years and years ago before I became an advisor. In hindsight, I would have opened up a Roth for him and put that money in a Roth. I had one client that she's a younger client, and she says, yes, I pay rent at home, because her mom told her to come to me, which is nice because I'm getting generational clients now. And she says, yes, I pay rent. And I forgot what it is she said. I said, okay, you need to add more to your 401k. I like that you're putting in 12% right now. I said, now check with your parents. If they don't need your rent money, find out, ask them, hey, if I put my rent money in addition to what I've already paid into my 401k, would that be okay? And she goes, oh, I never thought of that. I said, yeah. And now if they need the money, they need the money. But if they don't, and I knew they didn't need the money, because I'm their advisor, if they don't need the money, because that gets her thinking about, oh yeah, I'm putting more and more, because once you put a certain percentage in, you usually don't go back in and lower it. But it's just getting them to do it at the first time. So my two advice is making sure you're putting money away for retirement in a vehicle that grows. Number two is getting someone to help you talk through what it is that you need to do with your money.
I think that's wonderful advice. So I really do want to reiterate, it's the time to start investing and saving for your retirement is now. To be present in your life, figure out what you can set aside. I love the fact that you're working through multi-generational family members, because I think it's super important to make sure that we start savings now. The second, find the right financial coach, do your homework, and do the research. So Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us. I always love our conversations. I always pick up something from you. And to those of you listening, it's never too late to start saving for your retirement. Start now. If you haven't started working with a financial advisor and you don't know where to go, reach out. We at C2P can help you find the right person for your fit, but start now, work with a coach now. Your future self will thank you. So everybody, thank you for listening today. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. And whatever you guys do today, make it a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to A Woman's Clarity, brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Subscribe now and never miss an opportunity to learn how to become a more proactive, holistic advisor to the fast-growing female client base. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help support and enhance your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.